If God is for us, then who is against us? Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot. Buy back your block, real estate and stocks. Stack what you got, hold down your spot. Strike while you hot and think the man up top. Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot. Buy back your block, real estate and stocks. Stack what you got, hold down your spot. Strike while you hot and think the man up top. Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot. Buy back your block, real estate and stocks. Stack what you got, hold down your spot. Strike while you hot and think the man up top. Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot. Buy back your block, real estate and stocks. Stack what you got, hold down your spot. Strike while you hot and think the man up top.
Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot.
Welcome to the Wealth Mindset with JD Garnier. Listen to the words. Conspiracy or not, strategize and plot. Buy back your block, real estate and stocks. Stack what you got, hold down your spot, strike while you hot, and thank the man up top. Listen, it is within your grasp. It is within your power to get everything that you want to get out of this life. For the record, 96% of black men are free. Just for the record, 96% of black men are not incarcerated and are not in the system. So regardless of whatever narrative has been painted about our culture, about our disposition, about our likelihood to commit crime, 96% of us are free. 96% of us have the ability and the opportunity to do whatever it is that God told us to do. The problem, as I see it, is we all trying to do it by ourselves. We are all trying to pursue our idea of success in this capitalistic society. And when you try to do it by yourself and you are in the underclass, it almost forces you to be in competition with your own brother. And so while 96% of us are free, we have no collective thought that's allowing us to work together. And so in most instances, even if we achieve the highest form of success, it's lonely at the top because we are doing it by ourselves. That is a formula for failure. That's the reason for the racial wealth gap. And it is the reason why we have extremes in our community. People who have amassed hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and still communities where our children can barely read or write. It's because we are doing it by ourselves. In one of my last discussions, I talked about the term unconscious cooperation. And the idea is that in order for our cooperation, in order for our unity to be effective, it has to be unconscious. It has to be a part of our subconscious. It has to be innate in how we act without us having to talk about it. Because if we have to talk about it, that means it's not natural to us. There's a reason why we have to encourage one another to buy black. That's because it is inherently not within our nature to automatically support our own. There's a reason why you don't hear the Asian community saying buy Asian, or the Hispanic community saying buy Hispanic, or buy Mexican, or buy Latino. It is because of unconscious cooperation, in the understanding that in order for us to thrive and survive, we have to look out for one another without talking about it, without thinking about it, without encouraging it. It is automatic because it is a part of who I am that I have to help my brother. That type of mindset was taken from us through propaganda, through the constant repetition of negative images, of negative outcomes, and honestly, our music. For 35 years, our music preached a constant message of financial mismanagement, the mistreatment of women, the degradation of ourselves, the use or sale of drugs, and the killing of one another. We've given people awards that are talking about this stuff. We invited people to the White House that were talking about these things. And for 30 plus years, this was ingrained in generations. And so if you embrace all of the things that we uplifted in our culture, those things take away the unconscious cooperation that we had before that. The automatic trust that we had before that for one another. The prioritization that we had for one another. We left all of that aside in a pursuit of our own desires. And we started using terms like get to the bag. Like if it ain't about the money, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And we focus everything on monetary gain. And it's been to our detriment. It's been to our detriment. Yeah, we know how to make money. We know how to stack it up. But we are divided as we've ever been. The people that got the money, the way they got it is not what we want our community to mimic or to follow. That's not going to be to our benefit. And so it's almost like we have to completely reconfigure how we think. It's like we almost have to reconstruct what is important to us because all of that's been taken from us. Now, what's funny is I didn't hear anybody talk about this in October of last year. But October of 2025 made the 30th year anniversary of the Million Man March. In October 16th of 1995, 1 million Black men came together from all parts of the country and the world for unity, for brotherhood, and for a call to action to stop the violence in our communities and to come together. And nobody talked about it. 1 million Black men came together for peace. There was not one violent incident. And 30 years later, a lot of people don't even know that that happened. And so you have to ask yourself, if 1 million Black men could come together for peace and for love and for unity, who would that be a threat to? And what could they possibly do to make sure that that never happened again? Now, I don't have to tell you who was responsible and who put on the Million Man March, but that person no longer has a voice on social media. But to a bigger point, prior to that, hip hop was still in its infancy. Prior to the Million Man March, there were different genres, there was different factions of our culture. And hip hop and gangster rap music was only a small part of it. But there were other parts that we embraced, there were other parts that we elevated, and there was enough of a core that we were still willing to come together. Because in the early 90s, that was the worst that crime has ever been. That was at the height of the crack epidemic. That is when crime was worse than it's ever been. And during that time, it was starting to affect our communities more than it ever had. And so people were standing up. And now I'm giving you a history lesson, because prior to the Million Man March, this is another thing that was going on. The Crips and the Bloods were going through a truce. In the early 90s, violence had got so bad that they were talking or in talks to form a truce, stopping the violence. A million black men come together. The biggest gang rivalries are talking about coming together for a truce. Our biggest artists in the world were putting together rap songs that talked about unity and stopping the violence. And so all of this was going on in the early 90s. And we were trying our best to take back our communities. Our biggest TV shows were The Cosby Show, A Different World, Martin, The Fresh Prince, things that were holding us in a positive light. And so we were trying to take this stronghold of drugs back from our community. There was still strong enough men to say, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And not even a year later, after the Million Man March, is when Tupac was killed, the East Coast, West Coast rivalry started, and everybody focus shifted from unity to a division based on hip hop music. And a few months later, Biggie got killed, and the hip hop thugged out era basically took over the next 30 years of our culture. And it wiped out all of that work that had happened up to that point. And that's why you have people today that have never heard of the Million Man March. And if you look at the change culturally in our music during that time, after that East Coast, West Coast beef happened in the media, you started to see, or all of the other genres of hip hop started to dissipate. And the main one that elevated was the genre that talked about us killing ourselves and us destroying ourselves. And that is what has taken over and permeated our culture for the last 30 years. And look at the results. And so I don't think I'm saying anything new to people that have been paying attention, but we're at a point now where we're waking up and we are understanding that in order for us to be successful, we have to deny those things, that we have to look the other way, that we have been being tricked and fooled all this time. And now it's time for us to elevate ourselves and to come together. And now we are starting to understand that. But we can't do it by ourselves. We cannot do it alone. As smart as you are, as hard as you work, as tough as you are, this world is not set up for us to do it by ourselves. And in order for us to break this cycle, in order for us to reverse the psychological damage that has been done to us, in order for us to reverse the competitive spirit that we come into each other's interactions with, we're going to have to be deliberate. We're going to have to be purposeful. We're going to have to take direct action in terms of working with one another, in terms of healing our relationships in our past, and in terms of us developing unconscious cooperation, so that we understand that our actions not only have to align with what's best for me personally, but what's best for the greater good of my community and how I can support that. And if we are purposeful and deliberate in directing our actions, and we teach our children to follow step, eventually it will become unconscious cooperation. And we won't have to talk about it again, because it'll just be who we are.